Thank you, Siri.
Hello, Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who is intelligent and efficient with his words and spirituality. He has unlocked many psychic abilities and now is helping others achieve the same thing in themselves. When it comes to spiritual teachings, this man is very informed. Everybody, welcome Christopher to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. My name is Christopher. Um, some people are calling me the Astro Medium. I think it's sticking now. So you can call me Christopher the Astro Medium or Christopher with a Y. Okay. So I differentiate that. And I am an empath and I am also a psychic medium. I'm an intuitive astrologer. An evolutionary astrologer, and I'm also an ascension and awakening facilitator and coach, and I am an energy healer. Brrr, that's a lot, but it's a lot that I encompass, but it's really energy work and spiritual work that I do. And I am based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, welcome to the show, Christopher.
Thank
And I
you.
love how you spell your name with the Y because it does differentiate. I was just telling my girlfriend that at dinner. I was like, I like how he does the Y. I was
Thank
like,
you. I
it sticks
appreciate
out.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's me.
yeah. And it's funny that you're from Atlanta. Well, not funny, but you're from Atlanta, and I'm in Savannah. And
Yes. Who would have thought we're just a skip away from each other?
right, and I listened. So I found out about you from your interview on expanding realities, and I was
Hmm.
like, wow, this guy has the same abilities that I do, and
Hmm.
I'm just coming into him. And it seems like you've been into this a little bit longer than I have, and
Hmm.
it's just you're putting words. Your words are coming through my mouth, basically. My experiences. I'm just like, whoa, my mind is being blown as I'm listening to that.
Well,
So,
thank you.
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Your mind's being blown because you're resonating with it. Like I had people tell me, if you spot it, you got it. Well, you got it. So um, there's a resonance happening in your understanding, and it's causing you to awaken more. So people did that for me too. It isn't me. It's all of us.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right about that. I had on my last guest that I interviewed. Her episode won't play till the 4th of July, but she was super psychic. She was like I met her. Like I never really met psychic people before. I'm pretty
Hmm.
new into my abilities, and I'm
Hmm.
pretty new into podcasting as well. So it's not
Hmm.
like I've been around the block, and I've never met somebody so psychic. I mean,
Hmm.
she was just like she overpowered me and just like I could feel the energy happening. It
Hmm.
was she was performing etheric surgery. Well, she had my etheric surgeons perform etheric surgery on me during the interview. It was
Very cool.
incredible.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and now I'm meeting you and I was like, "Oh man, like I never heard a male speak about having these empathic and telepathic abilities like I do." And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And now I'm getting to speak to you, and I'm just like, it's like two sides of the same coin, and I'm just like, I'm blown away that you would come on my show, and I would,
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
we could
Don't be
connect
blown
like
away
this.
by that. Of course, I'll come on here. I want to share this information and I want you to um, understand some of these things better because I've done extensive research. What happened to me to get me here is a very long story, and there's lots of twists and turns, and it's going to continue to do that. And now you're just another one of us that are one of these pioneers that are getting this vibration to raise and to anchor all this new light and to keep moving up in frequency on this planet. So I want to say welcome, but I really just want to say welcome back.
Well, yeah, I feel it's appropriate, more appropriate. Like when people say they're getting these downloads, I'm like, no, I'm remembering.
Yes.
It's like it was always there.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So I'm only about, I would say, a year and a half into my spiritual, maybe about 2 years into my spiritual awakening. But,
Hmm.
I know that my awakening goes further back than that, at least another four
Absolutely.
years.
Yes, it
Uh,
does.
So how far back does your awakening go to?
I would say 11 years old when I experienced my first death in my family. That was it was a spiritual awakening for me. It wasn't a Kundalini awakening or Kundalini rising, but it was my first. existential crisis, I would say. And from that point forward, I formed a belief that I stuffed down in my later teens, but from the time I was 11 years old, I believed, and I truly did believe this. It was a belief that I had that all of this was a dream and that it wasn't real, and that I was God, and that when I died, I would wake up and that I would know how to create it from this dream that I was having. And then I stuffed that down and actually was kind of embarrassed about it in my late teens. And I became an atheist even.
Well,
Just be-
I'm sorry, I don't
Go
mean to
ahead.
jump in, but that is amazing. So at 11 years old, you just you remembered completely from and
No, I
wow.
didn't feel like that. And I had experiences as a child. I was being watched while I was sleeping. I was raised on horror movies. So anything that began to feel paranormal and was fear based in me. So I definitely shut that out. And I believe the media has used um, aliens, hauntings, demons, all that kind of stuff as a way to keep fear going. Maybe not even purposefully, but it's just the narrative that has embedded itself into our collective consciousness. And it has kept that idea one of fantasy and fear. So it is kept away and pushed away. But then I as I began to actually awaken or awaken more and come back, because a part of my awakening was being an atheist and not believing in anything at all. So that was when I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. And it wasn't like it was 100%. It caused me severe anxiety. Well, I shouldn't say severe because I have felt severe anxiety now, but it caused me worry. I wouldn't sleep at night, just imagining turning to dirt when I died. And it just didn't, I just worried about it, but I didn't realize it caused such worry because it was a discordant frequency to what I actually know to be true in my soul. So once awoke from that, that's where, because at 21 years old, I did go through a pretty kind of a twin flame relationship. I don't like using that term too much because it's tossed around Instagram and used to just
I'm not
kind of
into
make a
buzzwords either.
romantic, it's a buzzword, and I do believe in it is valid, but it's very overused, just like Kundalini and awakening. There's so many things that people are like, oh my god, I have anxiety, I'm going through Kundalini awakening. Oh my gosh, he's just like me, he's my twin flame. No, that's really not what makes it that way. We've this reductive element that we have on social media, because it's got to fit into a box and in so many characters, things have been reduced, just like astrology. So astrology has been greatly reduced to meet people where they are. And so it's really not even perceived correctly. But
Right.
once I was awakening and I realized, oh my God, such a strange belief I had at that age, but I am God and this is an illusion. So all those quantum physics, and I got into Abraham and Bashar, and it just kept spiraling from there. And all the while I had these abilities underneath, and I would go see psychics. My favorite shows were Long Island Medium, crossing over with John
Oh
Edwards,
wow.
Lisa Williams. I always wanted to be that. And I used to, of course, I
So
also
you
have
were
belief.
doing that throughout your teenage years and early 20s?
Yes, and I would give people readings, I would know things, and then I would think I made it up sometimes, and I would feel bad because I have a lot of Leo in my chart, okay, and I am an actor. So I thought maybe I am just pretending, because I did have a parent who invalidated my experience quite a bit, as a highly sensitive person even. It was a bad thing that the fireworks were too loud for me. I needed to get over it. It was a bad thing that I didn't like to wrestle, and when I would be touched, it would hurt. I was making it up. So those types of things embedded itself into me. And then I went through several phases where I was a severe apologizer, very confident, very feisty, but still constantly apologizing and not realizing that the reason I'm overcompensating is because I'm trying to control the way they see me, but I also can see the way they see me through their eyes, which is why I knew what they were thinking of me. So I was going to make them see me how I wanted them to see me. Gosh, don't you see all the hills and valleys I've been on in this whole process? And it is just beginning.
Wow, I resonate with so much of what you said so far. I really do because I had experiences invalidated, and I'm actually working through them. And last week I was on vacation, and it's just so much was cleared up in terms of bad blood, and just so much was resolved, and it was
Very
wonderful.
good. Very
Uh,
good.
yeah, yeah, and I'm learning. I have to go head on into things. I just have to tackle them face on. And what you were saying, oh man, I just lost it. But just the hills and the okay, so seeing people what they see you as when they're it's a very hard thing to deal with, and it's something I'm learning how to word properly. But it's
Right.
when I'm speaking to somebody, I can see their intent. I can see what they truly mean. So what they're saying to me, I don't care what words are coming out of their mouth. I know what the truth is. And liars are going to lie. So when you call someone out on their lie, they're just going to continue to lie. And they're going to try to make you appear as if there's something wrong with you. And they're going to try to draw a crowd and be like, they're going to say, hey, look here, like this guy thinks he can read my mind. I'm saying this. And it's like, no, I was like, no, I know exactly what's going
It
on.
really, yes, it really comes down to when you start to, you know, trust yourself, heal, rewire the brain, reparent yourself. You start to instill trust, and it's a whole process that keeps going. So it never stops, but it definitely gets easier. So there's a lot of people who are probably watching this who are in the early stages of their healing process, or realize that things need to change, or realize that they're the only one who sees reality the way they see it and everyone around them is asleep. I'm really careful about using that term as well too, because there's nothing wrong with people who see reality the way that they see it. It's perfectly fine. Maybe
I'm
that's why
learning
they
that as
came
well.
here. Some of us did come here to awaken to our multidimensional reality and our multidimensional beingness, but some souls came here to have a very dense physical experience. Some people came here to experience what it's like to be in pain and that sort of thing, because it's an experience. The soul doesn't have an ego that decides whether that's good or bad. So once you
Right.
start checking out of the duality of things, that's when you start lifting and your vibration raises into that more 5D consciousness. But that doesn't mean everyone is supposed to. There are people who are extremely religious, and that religious resonance that they have is in their DNA, and they're expressing that the way that I'm expressing some of my past life stuff or some of my psychic abilities. So I can't just be like, you're a sheeple because you believe in Jesus and you celebrate Christmas, or you wear hijab and you're Muslim. They can be just as spiritual as I am, and they are just as spiritual even if they don't think they are. So
Right.
that's having a higher perspective comes with more responsibility, and sometimes that responsibility is um, being the one who says sorry first, or being the one who forgives when you're not forgiven, those types of things. So as on your way up, the ego will try to pull you back down, but you got to pull the ego up with you.
Right, yeah, and the way that I'm starting to see it is no matter where you are right now, you're just on the opposite side of the coin of where you were once. And you're
Yes,
just
yes.
experiencing duality in every single way possible. And, I feel that those who hate one specific thing now were that specific thing before.
Yes,
And
exactly.
they were hated. So now they get to experience the opposite.
Yes.
And I
And there's a lot
just
of gray area in between.
Right,
And
and
on
it's just
your
experience, like you were saying.
absolutely, it's experience. So there are things that you have been through and I have been through, from childhood to adults, that would make us, trauma that we have accumulated. We all come in with a wound, and in astrology, that we look to Chiron to look at what your wound is. And so we even come in with a weakness or a sensitivity to something, based on your Chiron house and sign placement, that reveals what was supposed to be weakened so that you tried to heal that. It's almost like taking a couple steps backwards so that you desire to take 7 steps forward. It causes that, it's that entropy in physics, or that when things are vibrating, that tension causes that elastic shooting forward, so that going backwards a little bit, that's why you'll notice on your healing journey, you'll kind of take steps backwards, things will come back up, you'll want to do that thing again, you'll want to smoke that thing again, you'll want to eat that food again. And it's because it's revisiting, and it's giving you an opportunity to see it from a new perspective each time. But we keep choosing shame, and that's okay, because a part of that is your process as well. Some people have to go really low in the emotional frequency range so that they can have that desire, because if you're into Abraham Hicks or a lot of energy work and that sort of type of material, they'll talk about that. These contrasting experiences create that desire for something more that wouldn't have been there, because sometimes your belief that you can have something is weaker, or your belief that you can't have something, or you shouldn't, your unworthiness is stronger than your desire for it. So sometimes those negative emotions make your desire stronger than the belief, and then you can have it, and then things start to change. And we don't always see that happening for everyone. But if people are watching this and you're resonating with it, you already know that, I think I can choose. Yes, there's trauma, there's beliefs, there's genetic wounds that are passed down to you in your DNA. There's a lot of your behavior and what you're experiencing that you're not consciously choosing. And you've got to just give yourself a little bit of a break, and understand that you are a soul and a light being, and you're just pure source energy, but you did come into a body, and the material, the vessel, holds energy in it from other lives and from your ancestors that may not express itself in the ways that your ego would think is pure love and light. Okay. I've had desires for things, anger, rage, lashing out, sexual things come up that I'm ashamed of. And then you realize, well, maybe I did this in another life, or maybe it was done to me, or maybe it's something that I'm expressing because I'm actually helping to heal it for the whole collective. Maybe this is making my ego not be allowed to be judgmental, so that I can step out of the duality and do the healing work, which is my purpose. There's so many facets to that.
Yeah, I'm releasing all my shame, and that was the biggest 2, were shame and guilt, were the biggest 2 that I didn't know I was
They're the
holding.
heaviest. They're the
Yeah,
heaviest. So don't, again, you just got to be like, so glad I let go of those. Congratulations that you did. But
thank you.
they are the heaviest, and gravity
Yeah.
will take you down there
Right,
easier.
and what you were just saying is, what I saw today. So my mind's eye works all day long, and I see things, I physically see the world, but then I know my mind is working, and if there's something I need to be shown, I can see it. Most of the times while I'm doing, in a flow state, I'm doing menial work, just driving, I can do it, and it doesn't take my focus away at all. But what I saw was exactly how you said with the slingshot effect. The shame and the guilt were the deepest, and now I got slingshotted so far up, like because I was thinking about in comparison with my mom, and you know how she doesn't understand how I got so spiritual, and I was like, because I was so dark,
Yes.
because I knew the other side so very well that,
Yes.
I was in the yin yang. I was in the darkness so much that all I could see was that light. And then I just kept going towards the light. And now I'm on the other side of the yin yang.
There are some people who incarnate now, and we look at them and we're like, wow, look at you just having the best life. You got nothing to heal. Most of that's bullshit.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of people, their frequencies kind of like this. Sometimes us light workers, we have such a light, but we have such a shadow as well. I love the phrase, the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. I used to be like, "Ugh, who comes up with this shit?" But it is absolutely true. And you got to understand that the more darkness you're able to hold, the bigger you are. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
duality. So the more you're trying to reach up, the more things way down there are going to try. not try to, but have to come up because they are part of you. And it's about integrating those parts of yourself. Shadow work, but shadow work isn't always just, I flipped somebody off in traffic. I need to journal about that. Sometimes you have dark thoughts, okay?
Oh yeah.
Murder, rape, all kinds, abuse. And you're like, is this me? Do I want to do this? Why am I having these dreams about this? Spiritual awakening is not unicorns and rainbows. It is a very tumultuous, gosh, I have to take a deep breath. It is so powerful, the process you'll go on, but there are things that you may be clearing that you, as this incarnation, had nothing to do with. So be careful because people are trying to awaken their Kundalini. They're trying to open their third eye. I didn't try to do any of that. I definitely had done some mushrooms and I meditated, and I have always been into mediums and spirituality and energy and quantum physics. But that Kundalini thing, I didn't induce that. Okay. I would not have wanted to induce that had I known what I was getting myself into. My ego would have said, no, I'd rather stay kind of basic and bland for the rest of my life if that's how it's going to be. That wasn't what the soul had in mind. And sometimes people are in the middle of their process once it has happened to them. And some people aren't experiencing a Kundalini awakening, but they're experiencing chakras open, or they're just experiencing the process of rewiring something, which doesn't have to be, oh my God, I'm receiving a crown chakra download and this is causing this to happen. It isn't always that. Sometimes it is a little bit more earth plane and their neural pathways are rewiring, that sort of thing. Everyone's different. Okay. I'm a little out of my body. I'm a star seed. I'm a psychic in the mental plane, in the emotional plane. A lot of people are really down here in their physical body, especially a lot of males, because testosterone vibrates at a lower frequency. So you'll usually find that psychics, not always, but more often than not, we are gay men or females simply because of the lightning and frequency. But that doesn't mean that you don't have that. And as you can see, the time we're in, this age of Aquarius that we're in or moving into, well, Aquarius is the pansexual of the zodiac, and Aquarius is all about unconventional, all over the place, everything in between. Can't you see all these non-binary people, these trans people? These aren't choices. This is the soul seeking to unify the masculine and feminine energies into one form instead of, for survival and procreation, splitting off into these two very different
Well,
beings.
everything needs equal and opposite. So if you have somebody who is very against that in the very 3D world, then you need the exact opposite that would be in the 4D, 5D world.
Yeah, yeah, you
The
can look at it that way. Yeah,
Right, and I see that it's a lot of air energy is what I think you're referring
especially
to.
this year. Yes, especially this year. Yeah,
Yeah. See,
air energy is very strong.
I'm not even into astrology. Not that I'm not into it. I just don't know it. And I
Yeah,
know
of
there is
course.
stuff there to it, but
It's also very overwhelming. Okay, I've been
right.
into astrology for 15 years.
Oh well,
Yeah,
yes.
and I remember people saying things and me just going, okay, go on to the next thing. I don't know what to do with that information. It is very complex and overwhelming, but you as an intuitive could catch on very quick because the signs, the houses, all of
Right.
it is an energy. So you connecting to it through the heart and your intuition, you'll download the information faster and you'll know it without having to intellectualize it.
Right. Yeah, and that's what it seems to happen with me with everything. I just know something and then I'll come across it in my physical life and it'll validate it.
That is your higher intelligence. That is a
Yeah.
higher intelligence working through you. Your upper chakras, the pituitary, the pineal glands, they're coming online. Okay.
Right.
But that also comes with a lot of um, physical, emotional, and psychological symptoms of that opening process.
Oh yeah, it's been I've talked about it on the show that about my root chakra was literally cracked open from a physical injury, and I
Uh-huh.
saw it in my mind's eye when it happened. I
Uh-huh.
thought I was paralyzed when it happened because I couldn't feel my legs any longer.
Mm.
It was, and after that the rest of my chakras were taken offline and cut open or pried open in a similar fashion. Not an injury, but I've still felt it, and every time it felt like my body got switched from one body to another. I can't really describe it.
I know what that feels like. Yes.
Yeah, so I had this. The scariest one was with my heart. I literally felt that my beating heart was no longer in control of me. That I was just my energy heart center is what I live off of, and I don't need, there's nothing that can uh stop that. It's eternal.
Yes,
And
it is.
so
Yeah. That and it's a sensation that you're trying to put into words that other people may not have that experience or understand. But once we get very clear about who we are and we start to validate ourselves, we don't need that external validation from people
right,
who've not even had that experience. There are things I
right,
see with my eyes that when I tell people about it, I can tell that they may not really believe me, and I would not have either. I'm seeing it while I'm telling them that.
right,
It isn't, I don't care what you think anymore.
right.
I am literally seeing this with my eyes. I'm hearing this. I know I'm not crazy anymore. I went through all that.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Same exact, like I said that when I started, you're speaking my words, I everything that you've said so far, I am right there with you. But I do want to go back to the beginning. You said when you were younger, you saw beings watching over you when you were sleeping.
I didn't see them with my eyes. I could feel them, and
Okay.
I would complain about it, and they would say, you just been watching scary movies because my
Were you
family
afraid of your windows at night?
like looking out of them. Yes,
Hmm.
very much
And your
so.
backyard?
Yes, I just knew that I would see a face or something like that. I mean, but again, I just would think, well, maybe it's because I've been watching these scary movies and that sort of thing. And it was because I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. After I accepted all of this, which has just been in the past 5 years, all of a sudden, because I was afraid of the dark 5 years ago, just very like, what am I going to see? And
Right.
that was when I was told, I didn't even think of myself as a medium, think of myself as a psychic, did not think of myself as that at all. I don't know. You look back and you go, what in the hell was I? What world was I in? What kind of denial was I in? Just like when I was, I can't, I was open about being gay at like 13, but like at 11, 12, not wanting to be or trying not to be, what was he thinking? Like what were you? It's just a total paradigm shift. It's like you're a different person when you accept those things. And so all that fear goes away. But
Yeah.
yes, I've had experiences like that.
Have you
And
ever figured out what that was?
I think it was just energies around me and I could feel them. And instead of like being connected to it or being taught like in indigenous cultures and then cultures for thousands of years, we would have, connected to the energy of our ancestors and rituals and been in nature and been connected to nature spirits. And it would have been part of the culture instead of it being something that was not real or something that was scary or leering or following you. That's the connotation that it has.
So could that be, what you're describing? Could that be not necessarily what you're describing, but the feeling and emotions around it? Could that be what people are calling the abduction phenomenon when they're young
It's
children?
funny
They're
that you say that. So if we get into that, I do have a lot to say about that. But um, I am connected to extraterrestrials, and I knew we were going to talk about this. Okay. So I don't know if that's what it was. I felt it was more spirit energy, energies in the home, because I've experienced quite a bit of that, even as an adult. Right before I had my Kundalini awakening experience, I was staying in an old home that I was painting that was abandoned. I was just doing it to make extra money for a friend, and I had a lot going on in my life, and I was homeless, so I stayed there, and there was so much activity in that home and the lights going out and the doors shutting themselves and that kind of stuff. No one else ever experienced anything in that home. It was his rental home. And for some reason I awakened it, I feel, or I I was the one who would sense it and I didn't know why. And I'm like, these are things I experienced when I was younger. I've had these little experiences that would happen every other month or 6 months will go by, have an experience, wouldn't think much of it because of all the human stuff, bills and working and what kind of person am I going to be and what kind of school am I going to go to, all that stuff. If I'm having a conversation with somebody, I might get information, but a lot of times I'm very present. I actually have to step out and listen, and then it comes. It's not like it's they're following me, and it's the sixth sense, and I see them hanging from the ceiling, and it's not like that. It
But
was
so do
never
you
like
see?
that. I don't see with my eyes because
Okay.
like that. I don't see them that way.
Right.
I have seen things, but I don't see them that way because I've told them I don't want to see them that way. I
That's
don't
what
want
I
to see
feel,
them
yeah.
that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way with you, but
And
I
that would
don't.
take so much more energy to manifest in an apparition or for me to perceive them that way. It would just take more energy on both parts, and energy always takes the path of least resistance. Why would you do that? Why do we have to come here and scare you when we can get you to see the clock at a certain time or smell a certain smell? It doesn't have to. It's
Right.
movies have really, we've got to deprogram all the things because the Sixth Sense, that was a movie I was raised on, and it really bothered me. And so I really, and even my own mother is psychic. Her moon is Pisces. She has psychic abilities. She gets information from all of our past loved ones who've passed away in her dreams. But she said in her early 20s, I think she had an experience. She told me this when I was a kid because I would tell her I'm having this experience. She would just be like, do what I did. I told them, I'll see you all when I die. I don't want to hear from you. I don't want you to touch me. I don't want you to say anything to me. I will see you all when I get there. And she said she just shut that door. And I told her I didn't want to shut the door. I wanted to hear from them. I just don't want to see ghosts. There were so
Mhm.
many crossed wires there, so that I had to detangle.
See, I feel like I'm detangling so much too, and
That's what
just
this is all about.
yeah, I
That's
and
the
I
fun part. You know that spirit doesn't like a Rubik's Cube that's already done. They like it
okay,
to be real messed up so that they can come in. That's the point of it.
mm,
It really is, because if not, we would all just be spirit energy, or we would be down here, all of us just enlightened. There's so much of our ego and our collective beliefs have decided what this is all about and what's all the purpose. And we have such a limited view, like we only see such a small part of the visible light spectrum. So once I started to see beyond that, I'm like, this isn't weird. This is just frequency. And you start to realize that Hollywood really did its thing on me.
yeah, oh yeah, and I feel like you were saying earlier, the ups and downs of a light worker. Feel like
I'm a
if
shadow worker as well.
right, if we're going to be gatekeepers, you have to know both ends of the gate. You have to know, what's on both sides of the door, and I think, see, I had a very negative experience with the abduction phenomena, and where it wasn't spiritual. And I've come to learn recently that it's been many different uh, races of beings, mostly human, that are doing these things to children, and they're not doing them for good means mostly. And I've
Now, I
had
don't want to invalidate your experience whatsoever, but
right,
when we deal with beings like a shark, beautiful being, totally love
right,
sharks, scared to death of them, but they don't have any empathy for you. That doesn't make them evil. And I don't want to invalidate your experience, but a shark will eat your child.
right.
That doesn't make them a evil being. I'm
Right, well,
just
that's why
saying.
it's the humans that I have the issue with that are doing it, but there's many that are doing it, and they're changing us, and it's maybe I did at some point sign a contract and say, "I'm willing to do this," but then there comes times, in my life, and I'm like, I'm not signing up for this any longer, like, this
Yes, and we
ends.
do have free will, and there are
Right,
things as implants and entities and things like that. And but there is a lot of fear that gets wrapped into it, and um, so much of it can be soul contract, and so many people who've been abducted have been abducted by future versions of themselves. So
Yeah.
there, you could say that from a soul perspective, they had the right to. I hate saying it like that, but you know, you step on an ant probably every day, and that's why some monks use a broom in front of them, up in the Tibetan mountains. So I'm just saying those ants could all get together and just look at you as absolute evil. You are the bane
Mm.
of their existence. So I just am not trying to invalidate you, but what you're saying is
That's a very
very
good point.
true. But I do want people to understand that there may be beings out there that are so highly intelligent. Some of them we would call spiritual, but they're all spiritual. They're all made of God energy. Just like the murderers, they're made of God energy. You cannot argue with that, or you're not going to exist in the realm of physics and quantum physics. But it's just a different way it's being expressed. And because a lot of them may not have emotions, which would stop them from doing something. So I get that it can be horrifying. It's horrifying. I have, I know what it feels like to wake up and not know who I am because something's trying to get into my body. These are horrifying experiences. But when you start to vibrate and when you start to move into these realms and you start to do this work, these are the types of things that may happen. I've had conversations with people who did not have good intentions. Hate these words. I had a conversation with a man a year ago while I was trying to sleep who was speaking a different language at me. And I asked him what one of the words meant. I said, I don't understand anything you're saying. So fuck off, you know, bye. And I said, what does that word mean? He said, to dance. I looked up that word. I couldn't find it anywhere. I knew you're fucking with me, whatever it is. You could actually not even be a soul. You could be leftover residual thought form and emotional energy from someone who was once here that I might perceive as a form or a being that has a consciousness, because time isn't linear. You could actually be someone in another, you could be someone asleep in a parallel reality and I'm meeting you. There's so many ways this web could tangle up. And so I'm just like, I cleared it. I made sure that, but I didn't think it was evil or it was going to take over my body. And I'm not saying people haven't had those experiences, but so our ego will take us to fear and demonic.
Right.
You got to understand, during my Kundalini awakening, I was having kriyas, which are involuntary muscle spasms, jerks, and twitches. And I still get twitches a lot.
Yeah, I
I
have that
have ever
often.
since, where it's like little eye twitches, but they're all over your body and they'll happen, especially if there's an emotion somewhere trying to clear or you're storing an emotion there,
Right.
there'll be lots of twitches. But I was getting the jerks where my body was moving on its own. My hands were doing weird things. I thought I was possessed and I didn't even believe in demons because I don't really believe in demons. And I actually started to buy into that being a possibility because what else am I supposed to think when I'm trying to sleep? I didn't sleep for 21 days. And like a weekend, I would jerk so bad, my whole body would come up off the bed, kind of like in The Exorcist. And then at one point, it threw me off the bed. I knew. And I even woke up at that time thinking that I had died. And I went and looked for people to go find my body, then to realize once I totally woke up, like, oh my God, I can't even believe it was just, of course, I didn't actually wake up. I didn't even go to sleep, but I was delusionally dreaming while awake. I didn't, when you don't sleep for that long, there was a lot of different things going on, but on top of the energy stuff, I wasn't sleeping. So I couldn't though.
Right.
I could not sleep. It wasn't like I needed to do breath work. I was doing everything. I was tapping. I was taking herbs. I even took medication. Nothing put me to sleep.
So was that the Kundalini that was waking you, or doing that?
Yes, I felt like I was burning from the inside out. I felt like I had acid being poured down my face. My lips were quivering and twitching. My head felt like it had a tight band wrapped around it. And like I would touch my head at night because I would think, did I leave my hat on? It felt like I had a hat on.
Oh
And then,
yeah.
and I
I
was in a,
started wearing a hat when my I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
go
interrupt,
ahead.
but
No,
my
it's
I
okay.
started wearing my hat about 2 years ago when my crown chakra popped open. It got popped like a Pringle can, just like pop. Like you said, it was like something was kept squeezing until it popped open, and
Ugh.
I had to keep wearing a hat. I thought at first I kept it down, and I was like, okay. And then once Christmas hit, I was like, no, that nothing's working anymore. It's like my
It
guys are telling me just get used to it.
well, and it does fade. So that intense.
Mine's still open. My crown chakra has been open for 2 years now, and I mean,
Oh
it
no,
just gets more open. It's like I'm
yeah. When I
connecting
say
more
fade,
to.
if you keep feeling intense pressure there, like it felt like my top of my skull was caving in,
Oh, I have
um,
that all the time.
then that means there's work that needs to be done.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's what they're doing.
That's
The
all.
etheric surgery on me. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
not worried about
it's
it any
not
longer.
supposed to stay like that, you know. It is supposed to heal and turn into a scar, at least, like if you get cut. There's a process there, and then it may come back. You may take other upgrades at that point and download new information and new frequencies into your body through that chakra, but it won't all like it didn't stay like that. It stayed like that for about 3 months, even though I did start sleeping.
So how do you hear? So when I get communication, that's how they communicate with me, is through my brain. They put pressures and leave impressions on my brain. So my crown chakra is always open, so they always come in. I mean, it's never off, and I'm almost never communicating solely from my physical self any longer. So how do they communicate with you? Is that similar?
I'm very yes. The like
The impressions.
I feel like my hair is growing and a tingling sensation almost all the time.
Okay.
Okay. So it's that doesn't bother me. And it
Right.
used to be so intense. I used to be able to move the energy around. I would feel that pressure and I would pull it down from my crown into my third eye. And then I started pulling it down here. And then a year after my Kundalini awakening, my throat started. That's when this came online, you could say, and I started to get the severe throat tightness and swirling energies. And then I went through another upgrade, severe panic and anxiety jerks, and it happened again. So, but it's been a few years. I've been okay. I've done lots of different types of energy healing. I've also aligned with where I need to be going. I do think
Okay.
that has something to do with it. I don't I don't work at I don't work in an office building. I don't do, I don't do paperwork. Those are, once I moved in the direction I was supposed to go, it was kind of like things definitely still come up. But for right now, there's no severe cracking open or the Kundalini. What it does when it spontaneously rises is it hits blockages in your lower chakras as it's trying to come out the top of your head. And if it was to come out of the top of your head, you'd be Jesus Christ. So people need to quit trying to do that. Like, I think it's great if you become enlightened in this lifetime. I think that's great. That's not my goal. I don't want to be enlightened. I've got plenty of lifetimes to go, and time isn't linear. So I am enlightened somewhere else, and I am soul energy. I'm the version of me now, and whatever's right for me now. Some people will never experience Kundalini awakening in their lifetime. Some people are asleep, and you think, gosh, you're so behind. And they actually were a guru and had Kundalini awakening in a past life. And you think, wow, you're going backwards. No, they're not. They're just having a new experience. The soul didn't say, this is backwards, this is lower on the totem pole. No, them living a very simple, pure life. Pure is a horrible word. A simple,
Blue pill
not
life.
spirit. Do you know, I mean, non-spiritual people here are more evolved than I am? And you think I'm awesome because I'm telepathic and I'm like, no, I've got so many, all these traumas and densities, and I drive and scream at people sometimes. I'm like, do it, bitch. I do all that. Okay, I'm from Kentucky. I am not trying to be love and light. That's not my desire. So I am love and light. I don't have to try to be, and I am darkness. I don't have to try to be. And that relationship I went through, he mirrored back all that darkness in me and all of those insecurities and all of those fears and all of those traumas. He mirrored that back to me. Doesn't mean we were the same soul energy and he was my twin flame. It did have elements of that though. It was very severe, and it was the first time I had ever experienced like true anxiety and depression. That was when that happened, and that was about 9 years ago. And man, ever since then, I wanted to get well. It made me want to be happy again. So it made me, and I didn't go to medications. I didn't use alcohol. I did things. I've smoked and drank. I've done all that before. I can't really do that because of how highly sensitive I am. But I've done all the human things. And it led me where I needed to go, and it made me spiritual. I remember crying on the way home after an argument with him, feeling so dark and empty. He was taking my energy, but I'm going to correct myself. I was giving him my energy because we had a connection and a cord. He wasn't sucking it out of me because he's an energy vampire and he's one of them. I get to be the love and light angel, an empath who's taken advantage of by the evil narcissist. He's a person, and yes, he is a narcissist, but he doesn't. Narcissists don't choose to be narcissists. I really want to. Spirituality is turning into a Instagram fad, and it is just a way for our egos to now embody, so many ways to judge other people. Good vibes only in here.
Yeah.
No negative energy. Oh, you don't want any negative energy? Well, then you're not going to create any more positive energy because the universe has to contract to expand. It has to
Mhm.
deconstruct to construct. That's all negative energy means. Negative emotions are just as powerful in their right. They can attract so many things to you. And some of that, all that shame and guilt and rage and all of that stuff, it can catapult you into those higher dimensions if you use it that way. So there's so little knowledge, but I don't mean to judge the masses and the collective because it's just what's happening. Social media, books, our access to each other, we're still Homo sapiens. We're still half Anunnaki. It's a totally different conversation for later. Half Anunnaki, half Homo erectus. We're still those beings. We haven't evolved beyond that. We just now have access to all these toys and all this information. And we are now energetically, because I'm going to go on a little tangent real quick. Energetically, the solar system, we think that the planets go around the sun. Well, the solar system goes around the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So it isn't like the sun is just stationary. So the solar system in itself is moving through a highly charged particle environment of the Milky Way and aligning with the galactic center in certain ways that it has never before in the time Earth has been here in all these billions of years. And this is causing the sun to release solar flares, solar flashes, geomagnetic storms. This light plasma is entering the Earth's atmosphere. It's entering our biofields. It's activating our DNA. And we call those light codes. And it's also increasing the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency that the Earth gives off, which should vibrate between 7 and 13 hertz, which are my two favorite numbers. And it's the alpha brainwave frequency our brainwave frequency that we vibrate at when we are in a light meditative state. That's why you feel so good out in nature. That's one of the reasons. But now the Schumann resonance is spiking. It's going up, it's going down. There's blackouts. That's because these solar storms are getting stronger. And this was predicted in the Mayan calendars and ancient Vedic the Yuga cycle. We're moving up in frequency, and this was always known to them because they had access to other beings and other star systems and information intuitively and from the Earth. There have been so many beings here. Civilization did not begin 10,000 years ago. There were beings here, advanced civilizations, 400,000 years ago. Okay, and there is a lot of scientific and archaeological data out there. You just have to find it because they're not just going to give that to you. So there is a narrative that needs to stay, which isn't evil. It's totally fine for the top 1% to want to control all of us. It's okay. Because as soon as you die, you're uncontrollable. Okay. So who cares if you're a sheeple here who's getting on Facebook and you're addicted to it and you're just eating or living to eat, not eating to live, and you're just miserable. You'll come back and do it again. You may have been Cleopatra in another life. These are the things that I think about when I'm trying to go to sleep.
Well, that was quite a lot there, but I wanted to go back to the Kundalini awakening. So you said that if your Kundalini rises up through your crown, you'd become Jesus Christ. So did yours start going the opposite way? Did your Kundalini?
The Kundalini is coiled in the base chakra, in the root
Okay.
chakra. Some of what you may have gone through, because people can have spontaneous Kundalini rising when they have a physical injury or an accident.
Well, I
Um,
purposely did it. So I'll tell you what happened to me real quick. Is that I went from my January 2020, my what's it called? With the New Year's resolution. Sorry, I couldn't figure out the
that's
word.
okay.
So my New Year's resolution was to withhold from sex for 100 days and meditate. And I just learned that the day before while studying ancient Egypt was that's how you raise your Kundalini. So I wanted to do it, and then I did it. So 105 days, and then it was this past January I had the injury, but that's a full year later after I've already what I thought. I was like, oh, I already went through, because I went through all of those emotions like round one, and then it was like this year was like, no, this is like round 30. Like I went through very intense things that I've worked out. Me and my girlfriend, we cleared so much traumas that that I had from my past relationships, she's had with her past relationships, that we just saw each other filling the roles of each other, and we're like, hold on, let's and then we worked it out, and it was like we had to observe the actions and then let them go uh in order to
Yeah,
clear it.
you're doing all the right things. And I do want to say there are
Yeah.
people who,
Thanks.
um, I don't know them, but there are people who have gone 100 days, I'm sure, without having sex, or guys who are doing like no fap. I'm going 90 days without touching myself and that sort of thing. I've tried things like that and it was very bad for me. So maybe I could do that one day. Maybe when I tried to do it, it wasn't the right time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's not that it didn't work for me. Maybe
Right.
there's another time. Maybe it worked for you. There are people who are doing that. No Kundalini rising.
Yeah.
Zero.
You're
They
right.
didn't do that. They were just trying to get off porn. They were just trying to rewire their
Oh, and
brain.
it's
That's all it
amazing to
did.
do that too.
Yeah. And so there's no one way to do it. If your Kundalini rises, the soul is in charge of that.
Okay.
You think, I'm going to raise my Kundalini. No, in ancient Egypt and ancient times, in Kundalini yoga and that sort of thing, you are helping to clear pathways in case it does. And because also in more ancient times, that was kind of, they lived their life in service of the sun god, and they lived their life in different ways. And wanting to raise your Kundalini, it's like maybe that's not in the cards for you this lifetime, and it's really okay. Maybe you've already done that. Maybe that's not the way in which energy is supposed to move through you now. um, so it's a topic. Again, people are like, oh, I want to be enlightened. Are you sure? Are you sure? Because you
It's
may
hard.
actually start the process now and it won't end until, if we want to quantify it, 7 lifetimes from now. And your ego's going to go, no, I need it to be this lifetime because I'm the one doing the work. No, you're just one of the many incarnations that are causing this build-up process of etheric matter, is what we call that. Through each lifetime, you acquire, hey, even murdering and raping and stealing, all of that is an experience which acquires more etheric matter. It's not just, I gave money to that homeless person and I smiled at her and God has deemed me worthy of now incarnating into a higher being. It's
Right.
all just our egos wanting to be rewarded and then wanting to punish people and send them to a bad place. Once we get out of that as a collective, we're really gonna, and we are, go to any 14-year-old and ask them about religion and God and spirituality. You're going to get a very different answer than you would have 30 years ago. And they're extremely open to other religions or no religion and astrology. They're all into it. It's because they are, especially the ones who were born after 2012, they are higher, highly intuitive, and more highly advanced beings.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
What uh I remember you were saying in your interview that something happened that you signed up for some kind of class for a Kundalini awakening. Did somebody assist you with it, or did I hear that wrong?
Um, I don't know. I think you were taking two of things that I said
Oh,
and putting them
okay.
together a little bit. I did in a class in when I lived in Chicago. I was in a Agnihotra meditation. It's like a fire ceremony, and you do it at the time of sunset. You throw the rice into the fire. It's thousands of years old tradition, and they did it at this raw food restaurant there. And I would do that as often as I could, just to meditate, just because I was into
Okay.
spirituality and wanting to meditate. That was when I felt my third eye for the first time pulsing. And I asked her, and this was like 3 or 4 times into doing it, um, did you feel anything? What was your experience? I never said anything because I'm just like, I don't even know how to meditate. I don't even know what I'm doing. So I just would listen to them. And then felt that and I said, it's like, I don't know what's wrong with my head. And I don't know if this is a thing, but the center of my forehead, it feels like it's like something's trying to come out of it. And she goes, that's your third eye pulsing. And I was like, I didn't even believe in chakras. I thought that they were something that the ancient Indian people thought was real, but now we've evolved beyond that. It's not a real thing. It's just an idea, and it's not tangible. So I didn't think much about it, but she was like, how long have you been meditating? And I said, 3 weeks. And she said, um, it takes years for people to open their third eye. And I was like, I don't know what any of that means. So I already had it open. That was what it meant. It was already
Right.
there. But it also could have already been there because I was born in 1991, not 1951. Okay. So maybe we were already the indigos coming in with more abilities and more things online because it's part of the evolution. But it definitely, that was my first experience with chakras. And now I have felt all of them
Mhm.
physically in my body activating. So I can say without a doubt that none of that was ancient dumb people who just had a limited view.
So I definitely did confuse the two things because I was going to say, like,
I
how,
had
because
people help me with when I was going through what I was going through. I had, but it
I
was
didn't
never
have
to help
anybody.
me raise my kundalini or anything. Oh, I
Okay.
found people. I had to. I was going to kill myself.
Oh, wow. Do you want to just talk about that for a few
Well,
minutes?
Kundalini awakening, one of the symptoms is sudden suicidal thoughts. So it wasn't just that I wasn't sleeping and I was scared. That's what made it worse. And not sleeping for 21 days and not understanding what was happening to me because it wasn't just like I wasn't sleeping. I was in a severe state of panic and fight or flight.
Yeah, it
And it
sounds like
came on like
serious
that.
attachments.
It was like that. So,
Yeah.
and I had taken on energy from other people. When
Yeah.
you go through Kundalini awakening and chakras open, your sensitivities are more sensitive. So it was just everything was hitting me at once. Sounds were too loud, lights were too bright. But I also just was bombarded by this feeling like I was going to kill myself.
Mm.
And I didn't want to. It felt like something was wanting me to do it. But it wasn't I I definitely wondered if it was like something got into me and wanted me to kill myself. I've heard of things like that. No, Kundalini brings things up to the surface so fast that I could have actually been clearing having killed myself in other lives. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
idea, because you have to feel it to heal it. So I understand it now, just like certain desires that I've had. It may have happened to me, or I may have actually done these things, Like who's going to be Jeffrey Dahmer's next incarnation, right? Running around, working as a lawyer, and then just suddenly having these desires, but at least existing in a time where he can work through it in therapy. And maybe that's the lifetime he's choosing to clear it. And the Jeffrey Dahmer lifetime was the lifetime in which it was acted upon, even though, like, one of my mentors told me that he was seeing a past life of mine one time and that I was in a mental institution. And I said, that's so funny because one of my biggest fears is being crazy. Like, I'm so afraid of being crazy. He said, it's because you've been
Yeah. I don't like that word
institutionalized.
either.
And like insane. And he said, and actually, I think that things that you're going through now happened to you in that lifetime. And he said it was in the 1500s. And I trust this person. Um, he said you could have been awakening or activating in a certain way, and at that time you would have been looked at as insane,
I
and
think
you would
it's
have had no
always been that way.
resources. And
Right.
so that was how life was. But the soul, a lifetime to the soul is like a blink of an eye. Okay, so the soul didn't go, oh God, why did I do that to that version of me? I know it's hard to fathom, but the soul really was just like, that was an experience which allowed a really more solid foundation for this to occur again in another way. But this personality that I've now become is going to be a little bit more evolved and is going to live in a lifetime where he's going to have access to healers and information in this internet. And so he's not going to go down that road because he's going to desire information, and we're going to be able to give it to him so readily. It won't have to take his whole lifetime to do it anymore, because the way they've set up their world is every information is moving so fast.
Yeah. Excuse me. I believe that everybody who is not everybody. I don't want to say every single person, but a lot of people who are in mental institutions or who have ever been in mental institutions are actually people who are just awakened, and it was those who didn't want the
Yeah,
masses to understand, labeled them crazy, and told them to
absolutely.
call them crazy, and then experimented on them. It's
Yeah,
always
and
been
I
that
do
way.
believe that a lot of them may have fractures in the soul, or this their psychology is their psychological state is doesn't fit in like a psychopath. Okay, if a psychopath lived in the middle of the woods and never came in contact with anyone, well, doesn't sound so evil to me, because that person wouldn't, it just s- things are taken out of context and put into boxes. And I definitely believe what you're saying. And just like some people come in with a withered arm or a missing eye, or they've got, autism and that sort of thing, those can be things that are coming over from another lifetime that get cleared by the acceptance or the experience that's happening in this lifetime. So many different ways these things can play out. Doesn't make it easy. Okay, I do
Right.
empathize with these people. In astrology, again, we look at to Chiron for the is he is the wounded healer. That's an archetype. And Chiron is conjunct my ascendant directly. They're both at 25 degrees. And what that would mean in astrology is that I am Chiron. So I do understand everyone's wound, and I'm empathetic to everyone's wound, and I want to heal it. My energy does heal. So without me even trying to. So don't get me wrong. I understand pain, but I also, and it's easy for me to not be autistic or not have a withered arm to say all of this. I get that. But I also want people to know there are things I go through that I also understand. This could actually be something that was chosen, and there's an acceptance. I don't want to fight it anymore.
Yeah, the fighting, the resistance to it all is the hardest part, and we make it
That's
hard
the
for
suffering.
ourselves. Yeah, and I feel like I see life is on a conveyor belt, and there's a wall on this conveyor belt, and it's going forward, and that's time. It's going forward. You can run side to side as much as you want, but time's still pushing you forward. You can curl up in a ball, and you can do nothing about your life when everything's going wrong, and you can, but time's still going to push you forward. Eventually you're going to get up and you're going to start walking the right way.
Yeah.
And i I had some conversations with people over the weekend which were interesting, in that we were talking about different traumas that they've had, or things that they've gone through, anxiety and depression, and I asked them, how do you get over that? And I don't think they've ever thought about that before, because the answers I got, these weren't spiritual people, and the answers that I got weren't necessarily things that heal you. It was kind of like,
Hopeless sounding.
well, not, but they were turned to medication, and they said that they thought they had a chemical imbalance, which I'm not saying they don't, but I feel like that's just a trick from the medical uh, field in order to trick people into thinking they need medication. Because out of anybody that I know, I had the most issues. I had a ton of issues, and you could have classified me as having a chemical imbalance. Uh,
We all
and
have chemical imbalances.
right, and I've actually done things to heal myself, and I realize when I'm asking them, like, what do you do to get from that state of, of anxiety, and you can't get up off the ground, like, what do you do to go from that to being happy? And it's just like they kind of just waited for it to happen.
Yes,
And
and
that's I feel that's how I was.
I was 3 days into the Kundalini thing. Okay, 3 days into not sleeping, I had already scheduled with a psychic. I had spent $400 at the um, health food store buying all these herbs and um, Sam E for, I mean, St. John's Wort. I was doing everything I could think of not to go to the hospital or take medication because I was so against it. I wasn't going to be one of those people who took medication. Well, then the next year I went through it again and I had no choice. I went to the hospital in the middle of the night because it was heart and throat stuff that time. My chest was caving in. I was so scared. I just went to the hospital in the middle of the night. They gave me Ativan, and then I was afraid of getting hooked on that. I took it a couple times, and then I went and got trazodone just to because these are things I've heard in the past. I went in there, give me trazodone. They sure did. They didn't have it. They didn't ask a question about it. Here you go. Took it. It did help me sleep. Okay. Did not make me feel better, but helped me sleep. Okay. And I took it a couple times and then I was like, I don't want to take it anymore. And then slowly through some energy healing and things like that, I definitely was not going to allow myself to get hooked on it. Okay. But some people, they don't know what I know or have the fears that I have of it. So, and I needed it. I'm glad that it was there. I got some temporary relief, but I also didn't use it long term. I even kept the Ativan for a couple of years just because I was afraid. What if that happens again? I'll have that just to if I'm experiencing something so supernatural that I'll survive. I survived not sleeping the first time 21 days. I don't know. It could have kept going. The reason I went to sleep is because I had a major energy healing with I'm going to call her a shaman, even though she probably wouldn't call herself that. And I slept that night. And I asked her, what if I had not come to you? And she said, you were always supposed to. That wasn't the answer I wanted to hear. But now I know, yeah, maybe sometimes people like me go through things because my personality, if if somebody cut off my finger, I would spend my life doing conferences about how to accept having only four fingers. So my soul knew we're going to get him to help a lot of people because sometimes it has to be that way.
Right, right. Yeah, I was just like, so when I said it to him, I didn't think about it before how I used to get myself up off the ground. And then when I heard their answers, I was like, man, that's something that people just, because we don't know energy work as a society. And
No.
it's just, we just wait for the feelings to go away. And, there's so much that we can do, but we don't know about. And then we take medicine. And not that medicine is wrong, or because it helps people, uh, a lot of people all the time.
Yes, it
Uh,
does. And I do want to say this just real quick. Lee Harris is he is a someone I look up to very much so. His life experience and where he's gotten now is so similar to mine. We're both actors, musicians, all that. So I've always felt very connected to him. And he said one time in an interview that he was going through something or had some type of illness, and he was doing all the plant stuff, the herbs and all the homeopathic stuff, and he kept getting sicker. And he just was like, and so he asked his guides later, once he um, started to connect with them, why, because he had to go to the doctor and he got on the prescription stuff and it helped him and it went away. They said to him, you have a vibration or a energy in you passed down from your father's side that does not believe in homeopathic and energy medicine. You do, but your DNA is expressing the opposite. So the belief in the pharmaceuticals was stronger, and that's why it helped you. And that clicked for me. It really made me realize that there's no one size fits all. And a
Right.
lot of times, you're right. The pharmaceutical industry is a monster. Okay, it is a smart monster, and I give them credit. But it's definitely doing what it's designed to do. But the doctors are trained to actually believe that the energy stuff is not real. So they really believe in their heart that they're helping people. And that's why a lot of people do get help from it, because the doctors do. A lot of them have really great intentions. The people do want healing. And that's actually what causes the healing, is both of them having that pure intent, that desire. The chemicals get mixed up in there. Just like I said to someone earlier today who was talking about cigarettes and things like that, I said, my grandma, I had a grandma who was 107, smoked her whole life, never had cancer. Not everyone is going to have the same experience. So she may not have been smoking because of trauma. She might have just been addicted to it because of the nicotine, and she just enjoyed it. If you're doing something you just love and enjoy, not to escape something, well, then you're just enjoying something. It's the same thing, but there's two different, just like when you say, I want money, but you're saying I want money because I don't have any. Or then there's somebody who says I want money because they want more of it and they're excited to have more of it. That's the energy that comes back.
Yeah, that you're exactly right with all that, but I just meant like the people can heal themselves. You don't actually need, it sounds crazy to somebody who might not know any of the spiritual stuff, but you don't need anybody for anything. You don't need anyone to tell you anything. You can figure everything out ever that you need to all on your own, and you can heal yourself. And there's many ways everyone can do this, and medicine is one of them. So I don't want anyone thinking I'm putting that down at all. That's
But
not
you
what
and
my
I are on the
intentions are.
same page that we're not here to discuss pharmaceuticals. We're here to
Right,
discuss plant medicine, breath work, Reiki, past life regression, all of these things that are available to us, that if we can start to move in that direction, we're opening doors to our multidimensional self, because the pharmaceuticals are correcting the physical body, but you have a mental, emotional,
right,
etheric, astral body. You have all these layers to you that the energy stuff is actually working in. And I've had energy healings that nothing happened and things started to happen later. And if I was not in this world, I would have not even made the connection and thought that woman was full of shit. And it really did help me. It's just her energy healing affected the astral body. So it took, from our illusion of time for that effect up there to make its way into the expression of the physical body.
right. Yeah, and I'm learning that the 3D healing, not 3D healing, but the doing the work in your actual physical body, going through the things, actually experiencing it, that is the best way to heal. Because I started out doing psychedelics when I'm having all these far off trips, and then I became psychic, so I'm doing all these different things, but then it's like, what the easiest way to actually do it, and I can tell anybody, is just to be a better person, to be a more kind person to yourself, to start loving yourself fully, and then you'll start loving other people. And
Yes.
it's I guess it's what Jesus and Buddha always
It
taught.
sounds too simple,
Yeah,
but
it does, and it's so real. And people don't know to love themselves. I got some information the other day, like 2 weeks ago, that was Earth is self, heaven is love, and we come here to find heaven on earth. We come here to find self love. That is
Mhm.
the whole idea of Earth, is to be an individual, to experience all the experiences, and then to realize that no matter what you experience, that you gotta love yourself. And I think that's what's happening in the world right now. But it is really that simple. Love yourself, and the second part of that is to not be God over other people. Be God of yourself. So you love
Yes.
yourself and hold yourself to a standard that you're not going to judge anybody, and you're always just going to be okay with whatever they do.
And that might take practice. It might take
That takes
you,
a lot.
it does. And it takes experience, and it takes things to open your eyes. And there are still things that I'm now coming to the conclusion of that I'm like, why didn't I get to that sooner? Well, I'm like, sometimes things have to get in there and simmer a little bit and then allow it to grow. And then the light bulb will come on. And we're all racing around wanting it to happen now. And it's like, no. Sometimes I have been like, whoa, this is happening too quick. I don't want to reach the top. What am I going to do after that? You know,
Right.
I like this to keep going.
Right. And I don't think, I do get sometimes once in a while I'll get that there's going to be a big event where I don't know if everyone's going to die at the same time and that's how we awaken, or if it's, like a huge catastrophe, quote unquote, like the sun just has a huge burst that kills us all but wakes us all up at once.
I don't think it's going to kill us all, but that is going to happen in our lifetime. Is this great solar flash? And that's what they've been talking about. There may be people who
Do you have a
it
time frame for this that you've
this
gotten?
this would happen within the next 10 years.
Okay. I've gotten the same exact information.
Yes. And for people who want to look into more information about that, you can look up Bashar. You can look up my work. You can also look up Corey Good. Um, these are good information. But and there, this really dates back to ancient civilizations and texts, and also we're already seeing it. Look at the Schumann resonance. On my Instagram, I do energy updates every day. So I talk about what ascension symptoms are being felt. Some of them I feel, some of them I just know that these are being felt. Some of them I'm like, oh God, I'm so glad I'm not going through that. And then 3 months later, I'll start having it. And I'm like, damn it. But I also put in there the Schumann resonance so that people know, and sometimes solar activity too, that, there was a sunspot that exploded. It's heading towards Earth. You should expect increase in the Schumann resonance over the next couple of days, and that's going to come with some stuff because when that frequency raises, you're standing on it. Okay, so it's affecting everyone, but there are some of us who are very sensitive. Look, there are women out there who are pregnant and don't even know they're pregnant when they give birth. Okay. So I'm just saying there are people who are very unaware of their bodies and what's happening with them and unaware of themselves. Us, people who are watching this, we're probably very aware. We're very sensitive to the subtleties in our environment and the changes in temperature and frequency and light. So, of course, we're going to notice those twitches and the pain. And why is this happening now? Why is it only on my left side? These things, everybody's different. And the important thing is to at least consider it and not pass it off and think you're making things up.
Right.
That got me nowhere.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying not to hold any judgment on anybody any longer, and it's actually very freeing because
It is.
not only am I not holding that lower vibrational frequency, but I'm not having it mirrored back to me. Nobody's judging me
Exactly.
for a damn thing.
It's a lonely place to be because you, you don't think that Hitler was evil. You're a bad person. And then you get to be grouped into the bad people. And then people don't accept you just because you think, well, I'm sure Hitler was just expressing that energy and he's going to come back in another way. And who knows? He could be the next spiritual leader instead of.
Well, I've got a very weird download that uh, I'm not sure I want to bring it to air because of how how divisive it would be if I brought it up. But maybe if after the interview, if I
Sure,
remember,
sure.
I'll bring
I
it
can
up to you.
handle it.
But it's definitely very odd, and I have gotten that I was. Did you ever do a mirror meditative thing where you stare yourself in the mirror, and
I have
then
done that during plant medicine
oh,
journeys.
okay, I didn't do it with plant medicine. I just do it with the
I
mirror.
I don't necessarily recommend it for everybody. It is
Yeah.
quite
Did you see the
disorienting.
different faces?
Yes.
Yeah, so I saw I was Hitler with one of them, and that freaked me out. And that
And
snapped me back.
I would tell you, look how I know this is going to sound horrible, and I get it, everyone. If you think I'm horrible, whatever. Yeah, how powerful he was. And he didn't actually think he was powerful. But that just goes to show how powerful a human being can be, even if it's negative emotion or rage or trauma. Just he willed all that into being. And he was part of it. the mass awakening. Okay, from my perspective, um, I get that. I have had ancestors who've died in concentration camps and things like that. I have ancestors who were black, who were slaves. I've had ancestors, those things are in me. I've had Native American ancestors, poor ass Irish people. Okay. So I am not trying to downplay their experience, but as a spiritual person and as a psychic, you know, I do know that although it was horrible, and yes, we can all agree on that. I would not want to be one of those people. I don't say what he did was right or that I support him. I'm just saying they're all okay, if not amazing. Because if you knew what happened when you died, that's where we are consciously. A lot of people need to be afraid of death or they would leave.
Yeah, well, that's a good point because this, even though it started as an experience place or playground, so to speak, it has, to many, has become a prison, a bit of a prison anyway.
And it
They
can
feel
feel
like
like
it.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So a lot we grieve death and I understand that, but I talk to dead people, okay? I'm I talk to people. I did a reading the other day and someone's dad had killed himself and she just was like, "I don't think that's him. He killed himself." I was like, "Oh no, I got one of them." I said, I'm really sorry to break this to you, but he isn't in heaven or hell. He's around you and he's just energy and nothing bad happens when you do that.
Mm.
And if that triggers you in some way, I'm so sorry, but you don't get punished just because the ego part of you wasn't in agreement with the soul part of you. And he plans to come back. He's going to do this again. And actually, he's planning to come back as one of her children.
Right. I think that it's actually we punish ourselves, and we judge ourselves when we go through the life review. It's like, do we deem ourselves worthy or do we say we have to go back? And most of the time we say we have to go back because we did some things that, if we had a more objectional view, uh, a view outside of ourselves, we would have been like, no, I would have done that differently. So then we judge it, a- and
Yes,
and then we're like, okay, we have to go suffer now for it, but we don't actually have to, but
you
we
don't
tell
have to.
ourselves that.
The soul wants to be here. The soul wants to be in the physical dimensions. This isn't where the bad things are happening. It's so heavy here. All God wants to be here. Source wants to be here. And it's not because if they're not here, it's just a lonely, empty place. No, this is God. All of this must exist. Every dimension exists simultaneously. There must be something existing here. And people think that their soul is here, it's in their lungs, it floats out of their mouth when they die. Your soul is still in the non-physical realms, expressing itself here, projecting itself here. It doesn't go somewhere when you die. You connect more with it, you become more unified with it. You are just it's kind of like the leaf kind of becoming the branch and then becoming the bigger branch. You just go back to the beginning again. So it is very hard for our brains to conceptualize all these things, chicken and egg type of shit. So
Right.
but and then when you get into life reviews and things like that, we can look at it from a human perspective watching a movie or from a soul perspective going, okay, we're integrating this whole experience from a linear perspective because the life review is kind of a way to orient you into the no time and space thing so that there's a orientation into it. It's not
Okay.
necessarily here's all those things you've done, now let's go get it right.
Right. Yeah, the way that I say it, it was like Ebenezer Scrooge with Christmas, present, past, and future. He doesn't really know who's with him. It's no one really with him. It's just himself. It's just to make himself more comfortable to see himself from an outside perspective, and that's what
Yeah, that's a good
we
way of
do.
looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how I saw it.
Yeah.
Um, but you were just saying right there, man, I lost it. I forgot it because then I went to that. Uh, okay. So the earth, I feel sometimes that I'm so aligned with my higher self that I can feel that all of our higher selves are living out the same exact thing as we are, except the ones that have died, they're fully at their higher selves, and the ones that aren't are still kind of doing their own thing, and the higher self's like, "Oh man, sorry guys, I gotta go. I gotta follow, I gotta follow my lower self right now."
Yeah, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, but if we get into quantum physics and we step into the quantum field where there's no time and space, you know, you're being born and you're dying right now, and
Right,
there are parallel versions of you too. There are versions of you that did take different paths and maybe didn't heal. It's almost like there are, just like when you go into a shoe store and it's like, okay, I want to try this in a size. There's many different ways it could have gone, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist because you didn't choose it. It
right.
does exist. You chose this one every single millisecond. So sometimes when we talk about those things, it's like, do you want me to talk about it like a human, or do you want me to talk about it from a quantum perspective? Because it there's a linear way it's being talked about, and
Yeah,
to really understand it, we are blind people trying to discuss the way that the sun looks.
yeah,
So we do also want to be humble and give it up to them and say, we are talking about things that we can get the essence of, and we can put language to it, and that's what's making us evolve so quickly. But there's going to be missing parts to that, and there's going to be things that maybe aren't quite true to what it actually is
right.
like when they say, like when people who have died and then come back into their body and they're like, I saw colors that I've never seen before. What do you mean? What colors?
Right.
Well, if they tried to describe it to you, it would just be a mixture of another color you've already seen. But they know what it is. They just can't explain it to you because that's not happening here.
That happens to me so often where I don't have the words. Like I understand it so well, but I don't have the words. Not that I
You're an
don't have it, the
emotional
words
being.
don't exist. Right.
You are an emotional being, and mental, but definitely an emotional. You're a feeler, and that's where the drugs and all that kind of stuff for all of us empaths. We all are either smoking, drinking, injecting, eating. We it's sometimes it's just too much. Almost all empath psychics, they have been addicted or are addicted to something, and it's just an escape mechanism, and it's because things are just so intense sometimes. It's just how it tends to work. It's all okay, and we're all trying to work our way out of it. It's just a result of what it's trying to numb that, bring our sensitivity down to other people. Like I can't even drink coffee, okay? I can't. So it causes me severe anxiety. So we can't be so hard on ourselves about these things. And
And it's good to know our boundaries. So, I mean, not necessarily that I have to go shoot up heroin a bunch of times to know my limits, but, in a
but
general
sometimes it does
sense.
get to that point, especially
Right.
if you're a feeling person and the things you're feeling are too much, and that just happens to be the next
It's like a
thing
back
that,
door into heaven.
yeah, I mean, the drugs, sex, all this, it does give you that temporary relief. And there's nothing inherently wrong about that. We can go on how
Right.
dirty certain drugs are and how pure other ones are, but it's just,
They're all
again,
the
it's,
same.
yeah, if you get down to it, down here in the physical dimensions, we are choosing what's right and wrong and good and bad and all of that.
I'd like to say that doing heroin, you could sneak into the back door of heaven, and then a bouncer whoops your ass and kicks you out, and then you come back here all fucked up, and you're like, oh man, and then you try it again, and then it's worse, and it's not just heroin, but just all of
Yeah,
our
just the
escapisms.
kind of state that it puts you in. Just
Right.
like when people have out of body experiences or when they cross over and then they come back, they're very depressed, if not suicidal, sometimes for long periods of time because they don't want to be back.
Because
They
they
got
felt
a
that
taste
love.
of that. Oh
Yeah.
my God. But they all come back with some special ability, something that there's a reason that they came back.
See, that's the drug that I've been chasing that I've realized is that feeling of God when I took shrooms for the first time, and it was just like, it was everything. And then I've been chasing that and trying to bring it into my physical life. And I don't use drugs to get there any longer. I just
Right,
do it
good.
by being the best I can be by loving myself and loving
Yes.
others.
Yes. And you'll have these mystical experiences, and, life isn't supposed to be mystical the whole time, or you
Mhm.
would have
We're here in the
stayed
3D.
spirit.
Yeah.
So, and, when it comes to plant medicine, mushrooms, ayahuasca, so many different plants out there, I highly recommend. I do these. I do them in retreat settings and ceremonies, and I do it somewhat often, every 3 or 4 months, with trained people. And this is a professional thing, a spiritual experience. You're not tripping out. It's nothing like that. It is a
Right.
healing experience. It's opening something up. It's beautiful. I highly recommend that to anyone watching. I think that there are some people who are not ready for it, or some people whose energy may not vibe with it at some point. But generally speaking, I would recommend plant medicine to anybody.
Yeah,
But
I'm right there with you.
sometimes in my readings, they do tell me they need to go down this road more so than the breath work or the um, hypnosis or that sort of thing. They'll give me different ones that would be more in alignment with their energy, so that they can cut out all of the trial and error. But generally speaking, anyone would have a an experience that was memorable, at least.
Right, and,
And they would see themselves, when you neutralize and dissolve the ego like that, you're not the same ever again,
right.
period.
Right, and every time that I've ever done something, I've always meditated. It's not that I'm going around, going to see the Grateful Dead or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sitting at home by myself, or when I was with other people.
Your intentions were
Right,
there. Yeah,
right,
for sure.
right, and that's the most important part. Is always the intention, and it doesn't matter if you're being a loving person and you have bad intention behind it. Like, oh, I'm going to get this person a gift so they get me a better gift back.
Yeah,
Like,
just like the cigarette analogy earlier. Some people
right.
smoke cigarettes just because they are addicted, just like we're addicted to feeling the same emotions, or addicted to Instagram. It's not just nicotine that's evil, but they might just really enjoy it. It's something that they love and enjoy doing.
Well,
And so,
I have an episode that I talk about everything is an addiction, that being
yeah,
alive in is addiction, that
yeah,
you fight to stay alive. You'll do anything. You'll kill to stay alive. You know,
yes, yes. So
it's
there's a
all an addiction.
dopamine. There's so many different. Yeah. So there's a lot of judgment and shame wrapped around a lot of these things. And if you're doing something to escape something else, or a lot of times people are eating certain foods or smoking certain things, and it's actually they've got a blockage in the heart chakra, so they're partaking in things that resonate with that blockage, and it's just accentuating it more, and that turns into disease. But then you just have those happy grandmas who are 99 and they're smoking their cigarettes and drinking their diet Dr. Pepper. I grew up around all of them, and I'm just like, of course they didn't, a lot of these women had been through a lot and that sort of thing, but someone could get throat cancer and have never smoked at all. So these things do happen. So if
Yeah.
that's where we have to go back to the emotional, energetic side of it, or even consider, well, not that there's a karmic debt that needs to be paid off necessarily. That all sounds like, well, you did something bad, now you got to be punished. Not necessarily. More, there was an energy from another life that is expressing itself now. And if it does take you down, you're going to go right back into spirit and do it again. And it doesn't have to be tragic. We've made it tragic, and death is very, we grieve it. Every animal does. But definitely in our culture, we don't treat death the way that other cultures do, or the way that we will one day. The mourning of it, and burying the body. And we're so focused on the physical form that that's why it's so upsetting, is we don't actually. I mean, people come to me and they really are not sure where they are and if they're there and that sort of thing. I'm like, how do you? I remember being atheist for about 2.5 years, really, really believing that and thinking this is the most logical way to be, and just not being happy about it. I'm like, how are you all so okay with this? Everyone's different.
Yeah, I was atheist, but not necessarily in that I just didn't believe there was God. It wasn't that I went from being spiritual to not spiritual. I was never spiritual, and then I was like, you know what? There is no God. And then I stayed with that for a couple years, and then I found out otherwise. Uh,
Yeah.
But we, how we started talking, you've been through some stuff, some big time stuff. So what are some, some of your healing techniques, some of the things that you've done that have really helped you the most?
um, Shamanic soul retrieval, which is not everyone will vibrate and resonate with that, but the traumas can create fractures in the soul, if you want to look at it that way. I don't really like calling it that way. I like to say fractures in the consciousness. I don't think the soul could be fractured at all. They just call it that, and the soul is interchangeable for higher self. But in my belief, the soul, the higher self, the physical being, I have a way I look at it. But there can be fractures in the consciousness, the psychology, whichever way you want to look at it. And soul retrieval is a way of integrating and bringing those pieces back. Um, Plant medicine for sure.
So, I'm sorry, can I go back to that soul retrieval real quick? So is
Yes,
that something that you are centering yourself, you're calling yourself
you
back
are.
within?
No, you're working with a shamanic practitioner who is journeying into other lives, or is basically, again, we don't need other people to heal, but it somehow seems to work when they're there. Okay, but
Mhm.
that's because they are God, and we're the same energy, so we all came here to do this together. It's okay to be self-healers. We are self-healers, but what good healers do is set a vibration that the other person, in whatever way, is just not able to set for themselves wherever they are. And that person tunes to that vibration, but good healers can offer a solid vibration. You do heal yourself, whether you realize you're doing it or not. Like when that woman helped me, she put feathers on me. These are shamanic practices. She put feathers on me. She did certain things vocally with her voice that I had to do with her. Like these, I understood why we were doing it, as scared as I was and as um, unsettled as I was. I understood how this could work, but I didn't expect it to work. And I was able to sleep that night, and the Kundalini, like the shocking pain that was in my solar plexus every time I would panic, which was about every 10 seconds, I would start to panic. And it, it helped. And that was when she was like, we need to have a conversation. Do you know what an empath is? And I was like, yeah, it's somebody who can feel what other people are feeling. And she said, no, it's someone who can absorb other people's emotional energy and just energy, because I can feel what people are feeling. And I've always been able to do this. I just thought I was making it up or that it wasn't real. I'll be in readings with someone and I'll feel a pain in my shoulder or my hip, something going on with my head, and I'll ask him about it. And I'm doing it over Zoom. These are things that I'm downloading from the quantum field. That's an example of a physical empath. So when it comes back to like what she did, that wasn't technically soul retrieval. What she did, she was doing shamanic clearing. I was being cleared. She cleared my energy or restored more of a balance. But soul retrieval is you can clear the energy, but also bring those fractured parts back to yourself. I have a podcast or YouTube series that I also have on my Instagram called The Chronicles of Chiron, The Lion, the Witch, and the Healer. And I talk every week about different healing modalities, and I interview these different healers who do energy work. I have had energy work done. You could say Reiki gone rogue by a woman named Darshana Patel here in Atlanta, and I've interviewed her. And
You say Patel?
Darshana Patel, yes.
Oh wow.
You should check out my previous Chronicles video. I did a 2-part series with her. She created Ionation, which is a kind of a roadmap and a model to kind of check out of the matrix and come into your multidimensional self. And I have had energy healing done from her. The second time I went through Kundalini stuff was after I moved to Atlanta, and I went to her and I could feel the energy moving around my body, what she was doing. And I need that. I need to know something's going on. So those types of things definitely help. I also would recommend inner child work. There are things you can do: inner child work, journaling, going out in nature, changing your diet, and things like that. Try these things. And follow your intuition. Trust your intuition. That's a big one, because if you can strengthen that muscle, then you start to weed out the need for seeking someone else to move you in the right direction. You can seek guidance, but you can seek to affirm and validate what you already know to be.
Right. I like to say that I'm here to do myself, but then I look to everybody else, to figure out, you're doing this, she's doing this, he's doing this, and I'm trying each way. And then I figure out my way from experience, but I try each way, maybe not all of them. Maybe the first time I try something, I'm like, oh, that's for me. And I stick with it. But I don't like having, you know, a lot of people want a life coach or a spirit coach or a spiritual coach or someone who's going, a psychic they can rely on, and it's like that they are all good things to have if you can afford it and you have someone in your corner and you have someone you can call and say, "Hey, what's going on?" and they understand. That is wonderful. But you don't need that.
You
Anybody,
don't need it. You'll be fine. But
right. It's
sometimes
hard,
it
but
can give you permission to accept things. And some people, it's you can look at it like training wheels, they don't need it, but it keeps them from falling over. It just helps the process be a little bit more smooth.
right. Yeah, and anybody who is thinking, you might not know what a shamanic soul retrieval is. He also mentioned a bunch of really good stuff. The inner child work, the going in nature, being barefoot. I've
Yes.
been doing that so much more
Grounding your
lately.
energy.
Yeah, and just being uh, and just generally wanting to do what feels right, not necessarily what makes your ego self feel good. Like, oh, I just won a bunch of money on this sports game that I bet money and that made me feel good. Like, now that is a very different type of feeling, and you can't really explain it to somebody because it's such a close feeling that you just know. You know when you do something wrong and you know when you do something right. And there's just an internal knowing, and when you have that internal knowing, that's something you want to stick with. So
Yeah, and
like
it is a muscle that needs to be worked out, because we are in a
right.
society that seeks to invalidate you. Because if you trusted your intuition and your knowing, you wouldn't buy all those things or watch all those things, or it's just part of the society we live in. And also, instead of going into the conspiracy side or to the other side and being like the government's evil and the top 1% and they're trying to, it's like, hold on. I mean, they are where they are. They have all this money. Why wouldn't they want to control? Okay, just like you try to control your boyfriend, you try to control what your friend thinks of you. It's just on a different level. Get over it. Check out of the matrix. Make your own decisions now. And it's okay to get caught up in these webs and these different things going on here. And awareness, being the observer. Um, there are times where I'm yelling at somebody on the road, and I make it sound like I do that all the time. Sometimes when I'm going through something, I notice that I'm more on edge, or those types of things happen, or if I haven't been taking care of myself, my rising sign is Cancer, so the crab can come out. Okay, well, sometimes I am aware the entire time, and I yelled at somebody the other day. I was like, the fuck out of my way. And I was like, calm down. Ooh, ego stuff. Look at you. Okay, we're just going to breathe. Totally fine. That's okay. You need to yell. You're obviously mad at something. It isn't them. You're just using them as an excuse. I talk to myself. So I tell myself, it's not bad that you yelled. You're not spiritual because you're yelling and screaming. It's okay. My dad yelled and screamed at me a lot. Okay. That you might be expressing some of that. Look how. And great job. You just checked out of it and you just caught yourself, and you're not going to shame yourself. They didn't hear it. You didn't hurt anybody. Those are conversations I have with myself. That's reparenting. That's healing. It doesn't have to be this feathers and, oh, it doesn't have to be all that. It's what you're doing every day as well.
Yeah, that you're not the first person that said they had to reparent themselves on that I've talked to, and I realize that's what I've been
Our
doing.
parents are, if I was to really just not be as good with my words and be very black and white about it. They're lower life forms than we are. Obviously, we're a more evolved version of them. We came from them, but that means we're more evolved than them technically. Okay. We're a further expression of that energy. So, yeah, it's at one point you have to realize they didn't know what they were doing either. Okay. They really thought because they were done that way, or that's the society they grew up in. So, yes, you get to a certain point where you go, with the knowledge I have now, I can validate my inner child, because that yelling was my dad's inner child wanting to be validated so bad. And that's me wanting to be validated, because if somebody cuts out in front of me in traffic, they're taking something away from me, and they're making me feel like I'm behind them. Like, when you really dissect it, it's super childish. So you just got to go, there is a belief, there's an energy there that caused the impulse and the behavior. And it's okay to have that behavior. I'm not evil. Check out of it. Keep doing that. And eventually the impulse will hit and you won't act on it. Keep doing that. And then the impulse won't even be there.
Right. Yeah,
That ain't
that's
going to happen overnight. That could take several years just to work on one thing. And that's
right.
okay. It's what it's all about.
And then because it might not even have very many opportunities to present itself. Like what you're talking about, if someone doesn't drive, they don't drive for 5 years, then obviously that situation can't come
Exactly.
up.
And if that person, every time you get triggered, we all hear this now. Your triggers are messengers. They're gateways to your healing. But that gives you an opportunity to have that behavior and eventually just be like, I don't like feeling like this. And so then you try to change it. Well, then you start being like, thank you for jumping out in front of me and and inciting that feeling in me, because now I'm going to work on that, and I'm actually going to work that out. And that won't be an energy I'm holding in here at all. It has to come out. There are people who are like, I have so much rage. I'm I'm having thoughts of killing the person who lives above me or killing somebody. And I'm like, okay, thousands of years ago, you could have done it and nobody would have cared. You wouldn't have been locked up or looked at as evil. So you're an animal. It's okay. Go out in the woods, scream. That's what I told one of my clients yesterday. I said, go out there and scream, because I could see she had a lot of suppressed sexual stuff and rage coming up. Don't, you are a beautiful woman for going out there and being a savage. Okay. Quit trying to be the sweet girl. That is not you. Go out there and imagine it, scream it out. It's something's wanting to be expressed. And you only get to that point where you're wanting to kill somebody when you stuffed it down so much. Okay. And you're so in it that you can't see clearly. I'm all about getting it out, expressing it, not being ashamed of it, crying it out. I cry a lot. I have to, because I have to release other people's emotions. I pick up a lot of things. Too much energy can cause an overwhelm, and crying really helps.
My spirit,
Crying is healing.
oh yeah, my spirit makes me cry sometimes when I'll be listening to a song and I'm not
Same.
emotional. I'm not a big
You are
crier.
you are a very emotional person. One of the
Well,
emotion,
okay.
every emotion. I
Right.
just want to say that
Right,
because
right, right.
I feel your energy and you are highly emotional. But that happiness is an emotion, okay?
Right.
So you may not cry easily, but
Right, that's
you
what I meant.
actually could if you induced it. That's the thing,
Yeah.
is you just are, we all are. I have had to learn to use crying as a way to release. I've done that since I was 16 years old. Learned later, oh, duh, that was my body's way of throwing up to help clear an energy or to bring something back into balance. You may have had just a slightly different experience. Doesn't make you less sensitive, or it's just different.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and you like you said, I should have said I don't cry very easily, but in the last, year, I'd say 6 months, I've cried more than I did for a long time, but still my spirit, it'll uh it's like I get this pressure forced on me that it's forcing tears out of my eyes, whether it's maybe a song comes on, but it's a song
Mhm.
I've heard many times and it's not bringing up any emotions or thoughts in me, but that doesn't mean that it's not in the atmosphere around me and it's being released through me, through
Yeah,
my
exactly.
tears.
Yes, yes.
So crying is a big one, and it's some of the best ones that I've had are crying. When I've cried by myself, I cried with my daughter, I've cried with my girlfriend, and some of the best ones I had were yelling. And I
Yeah.
was a very big yeller. There was a lot of yelling. That's the only form of communication that was acceptable in my house for like 15 years, felt like that. And
My mom, thank God for her, but that was my dad. Yeah.
yeah, well, that was
Yelling,
I had
screaming.
3 brothers, a dad
Me
and a
too. I
mom,
have
and
three
that's all.
brothers.
Oh, wow. I
So I have two older brothers and one younger brother, and
Me
I
too.
was weird. The weird.
Yeah.
I got the brunt of it. Okay. I was the empath, but I also have a moon in Leo, just like my dad. And I was the one who they could talk to him any way he wanted. And he would yell and scream too, but I was the one who got it. And that was because that was part of my purpose. I was the one who was going. I just had a plant medicine. I did ayahuasca back in February for the first time. It was the first time I actually did the vine. And I was with my dad most of the time. And his dad came in and his brother came in. And I knew, and I even called my little brother, journeying. Like, he's like, are you like, should you be on the phone right now? And I'm like, no, I shouldn't be. But I said, I just want you to know that I'm healing it for us.
Oh, that's
And he
beautiful.
said, yes, I'm, I'm doing it now. And I even text my dad and I said, I know you're, because my dad, he listens to me, but my dad is definitely in the past would have been like, what do they have you out there doing? Oh, you're going to get messed up on all that stuff. That's his ways of not meaning to invalidate me, but he very much can. But I texted him and I said, um, I'm healing the stuff in our family line. Of course, he didn't have much to say to it, but I can tell the difference in him just in the past few months. So I know something was happening there. And I was the one who agreed to jump out in front of the train.
Yeah. Excuse me. Wow, that's so well put. And I don't think that I necessarily caught the brunt. I think that's just how maybe my parents were raised, was yelling, and then they did.
That
So
was how
that's
my
how
dad
we
was
are.
raised.
So yeah, and it was so for me. I had a lot of relationship issues because all I saw was fighting. So I was like, "Oh, aren't I supposed to do this?" And
Yeah, exactly.
so yelling for me was, or just being loud is more so
That
than
was your
just yelling.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
when I'm loud, that's like a huge purge for me.
Hear me. Yes, but it also felt, I mean, we can call it toxic, whatever, but my dad's a very different person than he was back then, not just because he's older, but he threw it all up on me. I helped heal him. If he heard this right now, he would be like, where do you get this stuff from? You just you just love thinking that you're the one who healed me. I know energetically that and I'm okay with it. I forgive him for it. I love him for that. I if you look at it from a purpose perspective, wow. I was the one who agreed to come here and do this. It was horrible. I'm still working on things. But it when you own that it when you have acceptance about it and you own it as your purpose and I am Chiron. If I look at it, my energy triggers people and I don't want it to, but my energy, that's what in astrology we would look at it that way. Your energy is very triggering and healing to others. But can't you see that you triggering them is actually bringing something up that they're about to clear and they might use yelling to do it? you
Yeah.
know he got to finally express it. It wasn't with a therapist one-on-one or in a plant medicine retreat. He was really in it and doing it to me and passing it along to me. But and I'm not saying it worked, but it definitely helped. It needed to go somewhere, obviously.
Right, right.
He didn't even like it. Go ahead.
It needed to be filtered out in a proper way. Maybe
Yeah,
not proper, but just in a way to release it rather than cycle it back.
it had to come out. There were times he would hear me laughing and it would just set him off that I was happy. I
Mm,
was, you're happy in my home that I gave you. That's my couch, my remote, my chair. You exist because of me. That was a little boy who wanted to be validated so bad. And the thing that he created did not buy into it, which made him even more. I was supposed to worship him because he would tell me, I'm the dad, you're the all the stuff. So it was just, but when you look at it, he was done horribly by his father and his stepfather. So, I mean, thank God for my mother. She has helped heal him too, because my mother's incredible. So, but it's just really interesting because I see it for what it actually is. And I've seen him cry just twice in my life, and it was really intense because he doesn't express emotions, and he is an emotional being. He really is. But anger has to be expressed. That's how it comes out. So that he had no problem with, but feeling sadness or showing these emotions, and he can have a good time too. He has a moon in Leo like me. He can work a room, he can make friends, he loves to make people laugh. So many good qualities in my dad that I have, but I find myself doing those things that he does too. You know, I'll say the same things and I'm like, I sound like him. It's probably because I didn't just get it from him, but he got it from somebody and it's in our genetics. He just expressed it and didn't think anything of it, like a typical baby boomer. Okay. I, however, am seeing these things and am so hyper aware, which they would look at as a bad thing. Oh, so bad that you're hyper aware that you can't just exist in your trauma and be blind to it. Poor you. Yeah, I have thought at times, man, I wish I could just not know these things. But at the same time, there's no power in that. There's no choice.
Yeah,
You can choose the better side, and it's not going to happen at once, but you will see results from going down this road.
yeah, you definitely will, as long as you have the intention to. I mean, as long as you just want to, it'll just happen. If you're
Yes, that's a law of
here,
attraction.
right? If you're here listening to this episode, it's you're you're experiencing things. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows who'll see this in a year or 5 years and give them permission to be okay with what happened to them. And that's what this is all about.
Right. Wow.
Sometimes we do need permission, and that's what astrology has done for me, because I'm an identifier. I can get really caught up in the identity of something. I am this. I have a lot of stuff in my first house, and astrology is a really great way to validate your experience and accept that you chose a map, you chose a set of energies, that you absolutely have free will. This is not ancient or Vedic astrology. Just because your Mercury's in Taurus doesn't mean you're going to be poor and a merchant. No, sir. And here it says this is the energies that are present within you that you come in and work with, and all have a challenging or um, positive side. Okay. And you can express both. So, not all Scorpios are evil and manipulative, and not all Geminis are psychos. Okay. So, it's just these energies are present in everything. They're archetypal energies that are present even in the geometry of your atoms and molecules. So sometimes we do need permission to accept things about ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. This has given me a lot of permission to accept a lot of the challenging aspects of my life so that I could see it as something that wasn't random or happenstance. And when you tell me, well, you can turn any challenge into a gift, this gives you permission to understand that maybe my soul actually chose this as a challenge so that I could grow, not just shit's happening and I can look at it a good way. You should do that as well, but it's not always that easy to do that. Sometimes we need permission.
Have you ever looked into human design?
Absolutely.
Uh,
I
uh,
am a manifester.
okay, manifester. Okay.
Yes. And there's only 9% of us on the planet right now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
And
a
that does.
reflector.
Wow, I could that would be that highly emotional, but you are a lot of your experience is based off of the
The
outside
environment.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that because I'm an empath, why am I not a reflector? Reflector doesn't always mean that you're absorbing it, that sort of thing. So you could be an empathic reflector. I'm an empathic manifester. So that has a lot to do with the different gates and the heart chakra and the links. And of course, in human design, there are 9 chakras. So yes, I'm very big into human design, and I'm going to be incorporating a lot of that into my work. I just want to make sure because it deserves I want to make sure I've got it the way I have astrology, because human design takes Western astrology and these planets and marries it with the chakra system and the I Ching, as you know. And that gives you a framework that reveals it's astrology is super multidimensional. Human design is kind of like the future of that. Okay. There are still aspects of astrology that are more intricate that human design doesn't cover, but human design goes through the gates and the transits. So it all coalesces. But human design is very important to me.
Okay. I would have
But if
thought.
you get into human design and you don't have a firm grasp of this, it doesn't stop you from using it. It doesn't, it's absolutely helpful. You don't need it. But if you get into this and then you learn the I Ching and then you study the chakras and then you get into human design, you can embody it and truly understand why it says you're a manifester or a reflector, or why it says the numbers, and where is this coming from. To understand all of that, someone like me, I would need to know the basis.
Okay. I only look into it. My girlfriend got into it, and then it got me into it because she kind of challenged me a bit when I said, "Oh, I'm probably all of them," and she's like, "You can't be all of them." She's like, I was like, "Oh, well, I'm a mirror then." I was like, "I've always been a mirror," and she's like, "No." She's like telling me, only
The-
1% of people, and I was
yes,
like,
our
"All right,
reflectors, yes.
right." And then I was like, "Well, guess what? I'm telling you whatever. I don't care what that thing says. I'm telling you what I am." And then I looked it up, and I was a mirror or a
You can,
reflector.
yes, you can see it, the man who downloaded this information. Ra Uru Hu is his name, or was his name that he chose. He's no longer with us, but he was a manifester as well. The idea of manifester, it sounds really cool, because kings and queens for thousands of years were manifestors. So I probably was in another life, and you can see that energy in me, and it was in him too. And that doesn't mean that reflectors are meek and mild and they're just going to stumble through life. You have to learn yourself. So you've already done the stumbling without knowing about human design and gotten out of it. So you've now, in your own way, but if you had had human design given to you as a child, or to understand yourself in these ways, like I just did astrology readings for a bunch of kids and teenagers the other day at this party. They were in awe. They were like, "How do you know this? This is so crazy." These teenage girls were just so, they felt so understood and so validated. That's what we're all looking for, is that validation and that understanding of self and that permission to be the self. Oh, maybe I'm supposed to be highly sensitive. My rising is Cancer. There's nothing wrong with that. I can own it. Our ego wants to own those things. And human design goes into a lot of different aspects: your routines, sleep habits, energy levels, what you need from partnerships, and those types of things. This can give you all of that too. But again, it does go a little bit further in certain ways. But again, so does this. So they don't really talk about why they call you a reflector or why, but it is based on your chart here and where you're landing, the I Ching gates and that sort of thing. It's very complex, but it just goes to show, when you have your own experience with this, that something's going on here. Okay. It's
Right.
spot on. I've
Right.
never read a chart where they gave me the right time and they were like, this doesn't resonate, ever, ever.
Well, say I asked because when you said you like to identify with things, so that's why you got into the astrology. Now that's
Yes.
how I felt. I was always identifying with all these outside things, and I took everything to the max. Drug addiction, porn addiction. It didn't matter what it
Oh
was,
yeah, the
A-
porn
and
addiction.
and
Yeah,
then
me
on the
too.
spiritual side, once I started working out, I worked out like a maniac. Now I meditate like a I meditate every single day for at least 30 minutes every morning. I have a set routine that I wake
So,
up an
but
hour and a half.
the reflector aspect of you, that has a lot to do with your aura. Okay, that's your aura. Well, if we were to compare charts, we might have a lot of similarities. Okay,
Okay.
and but our energy field is different. Your energy field reflects back. My energy field repels or pulls in, but it
Mm.
repels. My energy field, not only am I rising in Cancer conjunct Chiron, so I'm triggering to others, but in human design, manifestors repel people. It's kind of like Moses coming in and just, I don't need
Okay.
you. I'm going to do this. Other people, some people don't like that type of energy, right? So you're someone that is, it's not that you're easily manipulated or easily guided. You're someone that would be more likely to get along with others because you'll mirror them back, especially if they're really in their ego. They're just gonna be like, I love you, because you're still being you. Your energy's making them feel like you understand them. There's just a different aspect to that. It's really cool. I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's. I mean, just everything about it is the little stages I find out about it. Uh, it all lines up, and it's the left cross of separation is my cross, and that's for clearing karma. And I for the last year I've been telling my girlfriend, I'm like, I'm clearing other people's karma. Like that's just something I'm doing. And everything I say about myself, I find out about the human design that, oh yeah, this says that that's what you do. And it's like, wow, that's just amazing.
Yes, and it keep going down the human design route, and every now and then start checking in with this, because these are the archetypal energies, and this will go more into you and certain choices and the certain transits. um, I think you, especially the psychology of you, it can really break it down and really help you understand so much about yourself. And I have all the science and lots of different, I know exactly why it's working and how, because you have the people who are like, how does that planet have anything to do with me? And I'm just like, well, let's start with physics and quantum physics. But once you go there, you're really going to start to, the human design will actually open up for you even more.
Okay, yeah, maybe I should start studying it because I've gotten to a point where I'm done with the conspiracies for a while now. The social
We all
media, I'm
do
done
that
with
in our
it.
spiritual journey when we wake up to, oh my God, they're trying to control us. They're trying, you're moving beyond that, because it's like, well, that still doesn't feel good. That's not in the direction we want to go in, is to just now point out all the things that are wrong with the world that we see. We all do that. Just like I've been vegan for 7 years. In the first couple of years, it was hard. I can watch someone eat a steak right now and feel nothing. 5 years ago, oh my God, I would have, should I say something to them? Should I look away? It was very hard. I was very judgmental. Well, Kundalini wiped that out. Okay. And yeah. And when you start getting into this, I think you'll really, it's the mythology, the planets, the characters, it's the fantasy that's astrology, because it can be very scientific, but I love into astrology, such an intuitive art as well. um, you'll really feel these energies in you, and I
Yeah.
think it will help you understand other people too.
Yeah, well, and I definitely feel that I'm every archetype. When I look at, someone said that it's Jesus and the 12 disciples are 13 archetypes, and then you have other different sets of characters. You have the Greek gods,
Yes,
the Roman gods. But I,
yes.
I identify with all of them
And
to
we
some
have
degree.
all of them in us. And in
Right.
astrology, every archetype, every sign is in you. But you may not have anything in Pisces, but that doesn't mean you don't express that energy. It means that the other energies are more pronounced in you, or more or less open. Just like in human design, you have open centers, closed centers. Well, just because all of your centers are open, that's not a bad thing or a good thing. So it's just like, if there's nothing there, like, I don't have anything in my seventh house, does that mean I won't have good relationships? Well, you have a relationship with me. I'm your reader. You have a relationship with your mom. She's your parent. That's all seventh house stuff. That just means that area is more open and it's not pigeonholed. And it can actually be looked at as better. You have more free will in that area.
Very interesting. This is all very interesting.
It is.
And I'm addicted to information now, and not just information, but bettering myself, and especially information that will help me better myself.
Yeah.
And if I can help other people by sharing the information I've learned, that's the idea of this podcast. And
Yes. Yes.
uh, like that, my whole idea is that I want to help people by just giving them information. And what that does for me as a byproduct it just releases so much, and it's just as above, so below. And I see other people they listen to the episode, or maybe not even they listen to the episode, but the energy is out there because I let go of my energy and they start telling their loved ones about experiences that they've had, traumatic experiences that they've never told anyone about before. And maybe they heard my show or maybe they didn't, but the energy is there to allow them to free themselves from it. And when they do that, because I reflect my environment, it then releases more from me, and it's so beautiful.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you for doing this and having me on here. And I sound like I really know what I'm talking about, but I might be able to put things into words so eloquently, but I am still learning. I'm learning from you just having this conversation. This has been an awesome experience.
Well, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for all this. Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for all the kind words. I mean, this has been a really, really good episode, and uh, I feel that you got a lot out there that maybe I've wanted to say or I've said in different words, and it's very nice that I have someone who hasn't heard the show comes on and says the same thing, and in a very different manner, or in your own way,
Hmm.
and it's going to resonate with my listeners. They're like, oh, okay, well, he was saying that, and now he's saying that, maybe these guys are onto something.
Yeah, and sometimes when someone says something a certain way, it's kind of like a square, and when someone else comes and says it another way, but it's similar or it's the same way, it adds dimension to it, and then it becomes a concept they can really wrap their mind around. And again, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you have anywhere where you want the audience to find you?
Yes, if you would like to book a reading with me or want to find out more information, you can go to my website. That's Christopher with a Y, Chrystopher medium.com. And of course, if you're not already, if people are not already following me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you can at the medium. And all of my contact information is there. I'm also the in-house intuitive astrologer for Eclipse over Roswell here in Atlanta, Georgia. And we do astrology classes every Wednesday night, open to the public. We do it on Zoom. They are in person, but we also have Zoom participants, quite a few actually, from all over the country. And it's $10, and we don't talk about things. It's not like a 6-week course. It's different topics each week. But we are starting in July Astrology 101, Astrology 102. I'm going to be teaching Introduction to Plant Medicine, Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, which is a book you need to get. You would absolutely love, by Barbara Handclough. And we're also going to be doing all kinds of classes there. So you can go to eclipseoverroswell.com to find more information about those classes.
You said Alchemy of the Nine Dimensions?
Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, yes. And Barbara also wrote a book called Astrology and the Rising of Kundalini, where she talks about the transits of Uranus. And when you go through Uranus opposition between 37 and 44, and that's usually when a lot of people will have Kundalini rising.
Oh, okay. Well, I will
You should
definitely
check
check
that
that
out.
out. Yeah, I will
Yes.
definitely check that out, and I might even check out your Wednesday thing you got going on in July.
Yes, because it's all levels welcome. And some nights I talk about the signs, very basic. Other nights I talk about the asteroids, Pallas, Juno, and how they show up in your personality, which is not talked much about. We do a class on Chiron. We do a class on anatomy and astrology. So each sign correlates with a specific part of the body. So each class covers a little niche part of astrology. And then once you feel you're ready, you can start taking the 6-week 101, 102, and it goes all the way up to 104. And my goal is to get people to be able to read their own chart and understand themselves fully and understand the science behind astrology and how to use their intuition. That's why I call myself an astro medium, because you can look up, let's say you're going through Neptune square the sun, which I currently am. And you can look up online, and different websites will tell you very similar things, or there might be a textbook definition of what Neptune square the sun would feel like when you go through that. Well, sometimes in my reading, spirits will tell me I'll see which transit they're going through, and they'll tell me how it's showing up for them specifically. That's where the intuitive side comes in. So I could tell you what this would mean textbook, but let's see how all of these energies are affecting you specifically. And so that you can know, okay, this hard time I'm going through was actually set into motion at the time of my birth. I can't stop it. Let me work with it.
Okay. I definitely want to learn all of that
You
because
will.
because I love learning.
You will. It Astrology is a Pandora's box, and it opens you up to other dimensions. And when you start going down that path, it's going to lead you into all kinds of different things, and it really strengthens your understanding of archetypes and pattern recognition. So you start to see, you're already seeing the numbers and the synchronicities and all these things matching up. Your mind working that way, you're made for that.
Okay. All right. I will definitely, off air, I'll talk to you some more about it. But
For sure.
do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
I am also an ascension and awakening facilitator and coach. If you are experiencing a lot of ascension symptoms, if you're not sure, maybe it's not you, you can still reach out. But I do want to help you. And there are a lot of you going through these things, and it is energetic. You think you're going crazy. You think you've got illnesses. There's things happening with you. You're going through these internal crises, and you're making major life decisions. You're not in love with the person you were in love with, and your life is just, there's an upheaval. I can help with that and redirect you.
That sounds amazing. So, and everybody listening, you've had what, 2 hours plus here to hear Christopher, talk about all the things he's talked about. So,
Yeah.
so
My
I
mouth is dry.
I think that you get a pretty good feel for somebody in a 2 hour conversation with me. I bring out the best in somebody or the worst in somebody, whatever they have to offer, and
Me too.
uh, I guess that's not a coincidence.
No.
So you hear all of this, stop by and check out Christopher if you aren't already. I mean, the first time I heard him, I just knew that I got to connect with him because there's not too many people that get to be able to explain these things that are willing to help. There's a lot of people that want to wall off and put everything in a box to keep it there because
Not
this
me.
is everyone's experience. But I like that to get the people that are free flowing with their information. And yeah, I mean, Christopher came on here. He's no problem at all. He was like, hey, yeah, I'll come on. Boom. Here we are a couple days later, and just having my mind blown.
This is what I love to do.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I love it more and more each day. And if anybody wants to reach out to the show, my email is thegreatchakraawakening777@gmail.com. The website for the podcast is thegreatchakraawakening777.podbean.com, and you can find all my links there for Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I don't even do anything on Instagram other than reach out to people for the podcast.
As of now.
Yeah, as of now, but I do have it just in case. Everything
One
is
thing at a
there.
time.
Right, all the foundations are there, but I even have a Patreon, but I have literally nothing on there for the last month because
That's okay.
yeah, Human
Yes.
Design told me to wait a lunar cycle before I make a decision, and so I have it, and it's been about 3 weeks now. So we'll see what happens in another week or so.
Hey, it's ready when you're ready.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, anybody listening, I will have all of the notes, or I mean, I'm sorry, all the links in the show notes. And I think that is everything.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for coming on. And I'm going to stop the recording now. All right, everybody. Have a good night.